Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. We are live right now on YouTube. I am actually looking for the link so I can go ahead and post this for others who'd like to join along. So as I do that, I'll turn it over to you right now, Nick. The Giants obviously just defeated the Colts. Drew Lock threw for 300 plus passing, Nick. 4 passing touchdowns, which, by the way, I think the last 4+ passing touchdown quarterback for the Giants was Daniel Jones in 2019 against the Washington Commanders, or they were the Redskins, I think, at the time. I don't think Jones ever, I know Jones had like a 58 or 59 game streak of not throwing 3 passing touchdowns, Daniel Jones, which was the longest active streak in the NFL before he was cut by the Giants. And I think second was Watson with 17. So, no one was within 40 games of Daniel Jones in that regard. But as far as 4 passing touchdowns go, I don't think Jones threw that since the 2019 game against Washington when he had 5, his rookie season. And then so that's 6 years ago. And then I don't think Taylor did it. And I think DeVito had a 3 touchdown game, Nick, but I don't think DeVito had a 4 passing. And then Drew Lock had 5 total touchdowns, 13 yards per attempt. Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy reached 20 miles per hour plus on their 2 biggest plays, the Tracy 40-yard run, the Neighbors touchdown. One of Neighbors' 2 touchdowns. Neighbors had 2 touchdowns. He, eclipsed the 100 reception mark. I think 1,000 yards now. 166 receiving yards, an amazing game from him. Great game from Tracy, I thought, considering the line sucked. The 2 rookies look awesome. Their 5th-round rookie, Tracy, and then obviously Malik Neighbors. So talent is there. Obviously, we're not going to bury the lead, though. The Giants winning this game cost them the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And of course, it's not just the number 1 pick in the draft. It's the number 1 pick in each round. You start day 2 and everyone's collected themselves. They went back home. Now the pick is insanely valuable for trades. That's gone. You don't have that first pick of day 2. You don't have the first pick of day 3 where all the good day 2 guys that didn't go are now available to you. You lose all that by losing the first pick, not just the number 1 overall pick. So it is what it is, but that's the life of us.
Dan, I'm sure we won't be talking about this game for decades to come, ladies and gentlemen. Look, it's been a depressing season. No one wants to lose every game at home, but the Giants put us through this absolute nightmare of a season. And then when they secure the number 1 overall pick, they go, you know what? No, we're going to drop 40 points. We're actually going to score. Our quarterback's going to score 5 total touchdowns. This is an absolute Ferric victory, meaning it's a victory for the New York Giants at grave costs, because the Giants may now lose the number 1 overall pick, right? Unless some teams win next week, the Giants won't have that number 1 overall pick. They need a quarterback. They had the leverage. We already endured this shit season, and now we have no idea where the New York Giants are going to pick. So this hurts. It does. Look, people will be like, hey, it's good to see a victory. It's good to see competent football. I agree with that. It is good to see competent football, but contextually, this is terrible for the New York Giants long-term, as Dan and I have discussed over the years with these somewhat meaningless wins at the end of seasons, especially when you're just locked up right there to get that number 1 overall pick. We're hearing Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, where that debate has already commenced here in Giants universe. And there we go, dropping 40 plus on the Colts, reminiscent of the 2022 season, only with exact opposite circumstances. The Colts couldn't come into our building as that playoff team, that potential playoff team, and defeat the hapless New York Giants. Instead, they allow the Giants to drop 40 points. The Giants averaged about 14.3 points per game coming into this game, Dan. I think it was 14.3. That is embarrassingly bad.
Embarrassing. 45.
And mind you, everybody, I just want to say this is a little producer note. I don't have my mic here, so it might sound a little bit like shit. But you know what? Shit surrounds us right now with this victory. And Dan and I will also not be here with the All 22 podcast this week with New Year's going on. We each had plans. So that's another thing. So this will be the reaction and the All 22, I guess, podcast wrapped in one. And honestly, I think Giant fans are just so dejected and disgusted at this point that I'm not even sure how much they'll care.
No, they won't care, but it would actually be the only decent tape we've had to evaluate.
Dude, it was decent tape. It seemed like.
On offense, at least. Well, mostly just Neighbors, and Locke played well. Like, Locke out of nowhere played well. Like, he had one. My brother was like, when he converted that late third down to, first of all, he did like a long touchdown drive at the end of the game, Locke, to win the game. Like, he needed to go the full field. He drives the full field for a touchdown drive to end the game, like, out of nowhere. And my brother's like, on that drive, he had a third down, and he went through like a full field progression and found Wan'Dale Robinson. It's like, the hell are we watching right here? This dude is 340 4 TDs. We haven't had that in years. Like it's
Can't
just
even
like
tank correctly, guys. We can't even tank correctly.
it's not about like no one thinks we're tanking. No,
No
players
shit, it's
don't
a
tank.
joke, but I'm saying
I know
like
what you mean. No, I know
yeah,
what you mean.
but like we're right there, right? Like I said earlier, we've
Yeah,
already experienced what has harmed us so much.
sure.
It's already been experienced. We've already swallowed that cough syrup. It's already gone down. We're
Yeah.
digesting it. And now they go and they win this meaningless game instead of winning when it actually mattered. And now we
Right.
just don't know the fate of the New York Giants, right?
Right.
Again,
And
we appreciate winning, right? But like contextually, this is not a great day for the New York Giants, and I'm sure a lot of people can understand that.
yeah, no, this is not good for the Giants franchise whatsoever to win this football game, unless you believe in things that are kind of proven to be untrue, like carryover momentum and bullshit like that. But listen, I will say this. If you're one of those people who's like, I didn't really want Cam Ward or Shador Sanders, so this is kind of a good thing, right? Like now the Giants aren't going to be in position to get one of those guys with the first overall pick. Well, I got 2 things to tell you. One, Joe Shane, if they bring him back, and it looks like they will, Nick, because he was at both Sanders and Ward's game this weekend, scouting them, which is a clear-cut sign to me that he's not going anywhere and they don't have any plans to replace him. Well, now we could be in for what I would consider to be a nightmare scenario that I am going to get out and ahead of on December 29th and say, I am not interested in, and I think could be really bad for the franchise. Joe Shane comes back, gets his chance, and is now in pure Dave Gettleman panic mode at quarterback. I got to get a quarterback. Trades up from 5 or 7 to get one of these guys when they should have had the first pick and not have giving up a 2026 first rounder, another second round pick, and potentially other assets to trade up for one of these quarterbacks that I would never personally trade up for in any draft. So that's a real big issue. So I didn't even want those quarterbacks. Well, now you might have that happen. So it is really bad to lose that pick. Second thing, again, and I want to reiterate, when you get the first pick, it is worth a lot. You can trade it to other teams. You can have the first pick in every goddamn round, and you don't want to lose this thing. It's worth a lot more to the franchise than them beating the Colts and knocking the Colts out of the playoffs with Joe Flacco, who gives a fucking shit. They're still going to lose every division game this year, the Giants. Every division game. Or they might win next week's against Philly, dropping them to 7 or 8. So it's just crap. They're 2-13, and then if they win 2 games at the end of the year, that's not good. There's no way that can be painted as good. I don't want to hear it. I don't care anymore. That's not good for the future of this franchise. To go 2-13 and then win 2 games at the end. That is not good by any means. And so that's all I'm saying on that front. And I want to get out ahead, Nick, because I do not want to be trading up for one of these quarterbacks from 7 to 1 or 7 to 2, giving up next year's first and all these other fucking picks when we can't afford to do that. And that's this scenario that we're barreling down towards because of things like this, because of games like this. And the Colts, man, they blew this game, Nick. They gave up a kick return touchdown. They turned it over on downs in the red zone. They missed a field goal. They fucking threw 3 interceptions, 2 drops, all sorts of stupid things to lose.
They were so
game.
sloppy to start this game.
So sloppy.
So sloppy. So many drop
man.
passes, and just the timing was off between A.D. Mitchell and Joe Flacco. And then the Giants looked crisp, man. They were able to establish the run, and they were doing – it wasn't like they reinvented the wheel. This is a similar looking offense that we saw with Drew Lock. Yeah. Drew Lock wasn't shitting all over himself. Drew Lock was executing the offense, and he was really efficient. And his stats are just absolutely wild. I don't know what his passer rating was, but it was 17 of 23 for 309 with
155.3 passer rating is insane.
It's an insane passer rating for Drew Lock, who entered this game with 1 touchdown pass and 3 pick sixes thrown and 4 total interceptions.
Imagine starting him in the fantasy finals championship today. Nick, dude, I might lose my finals because I went up against Jonathan Taylor at a monster game against us, and the Giants still won. It was like a nightmare scenario. But if you started Drew Lock somehow in a 2 QB league, you had 309 passing, 4 passing TDs, and got an extra 6 points with a rushing TD.
Yeah, no, it was a wild game. It did seem like the Giants were competent offensively.
Yeah.
And dude, it was
honestly, Nick, I'm going to tell you something. I want to stop there for a second. I think Locke was more competent than he's ever been. He was actually moving, but it also felt to me like the Colts were so incompetent.
Well, I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that a lot of these plays, though, were yards after the catch from Malik Neighbors. And we've seen the Giants hit a lot of these short passes frequently. And it's just rally and tackle, rally and tackle, rally and tackle. Well, in this game, Evan Neal blocked Daniel Bellinger, and Daniel Bellinger held up his guy just long enough to allow Malik Neighbors to run right past him and accelerate past the safety who took a terrible angle downhill. Yeah. And on the next play, it was something similar where it was Malik Neighbors sifting through secondary pieces who never closed with on Malik Neighbors.
Right.
So it was a product of the Colts being inept as well. But you're right. Drew Lock, I think he deserves his kudos. He deserves his praise for this game. This was a career game for Drew Lock, and it came at the expense of the Giants earning the 2025 first overall pick in the draft. But yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess.
It's the way it is for us. It's a reverse of what happened last year, I guess, where they had those wins early with the DeVito run and then lost late in the year, costing them Jaden Daniels and Drake May. We'll see what happens with this win, and it could be these wins, Nick, because I think if Locke has found something, and he might have, the Giants should almost be like a favorite next week against Philly. I think Philly got
Barkley, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Philly got Barkley his record, I believe, or got him to the 2000.
Well, they got him to 2000. He still needs, I think, like about 100 yards, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't looked, but around 100 yards to get Eric Dickerson's record. Which I'm sure
they might give him that chance. They might actually. That's good for the Giants.
Poetic for him. It's poetic for him.
I think they might have to give him that chance, honestly, which would mean they'd have to start. That gives me some hope, I guess. But Tanner McKee is not gonna. And I hate to talk about it. Like, so let me make this clear because I know there's gonna be a lot of people in the comments. This guy's a loser. He's rooting for the Giants. Anybody who roots for them not to win is a loser. I hear you. I'm done with it, though. I'm just done with it. These wins are not worth anything. They're really not. They've proven to be worth nothing. They were worth nothing at the end of the Judge year. They were worth nothing. I've lived this life so many times where like, but you're building momentum and culture. Like I heard it on the broadcast. The guys like, these are the type of wins, the culture that carries over next year. It doesn't carry over. They lose 40-0 in week 1 after the carryover, dude. Like, what are we watching? You've watched it too with your own eyes. You cannot carry over. Everything resets in the offseason, okay? What matters more to me is Deonte Banks looked like shit today. That's their first-round pick, Joe Shane's 2023 first-round pick that he traded up for, and he looked terrible to me today. He had one pass breakup that to me looked like a DPI they didn't call, but it was a good play by Banks. I guess he kind of got there, and then everything else looked like crap for Banks. 69 yards in DPI today for Deonte Banks. How about that? That's what carries over. If your first-round pick can actually give you something in your future, not if you beat the Colts in this game. So, no, I'm not going to sit here and listen to it or acknowledge it because I don't care. I don't care anymore. I just don't. I'm done with it. Done with caring about that argument. I'm done with it, acknowledging it. And I'm more worried about that, Nick, because this guy who they're going to bring back, Joe Shane, Deonte Banks, his 20, like, are we just going to rest on the laurels of a 2024 draft class? You're back, Shane. You're desperate to draft a quarterback. This seems like a horrible position to put us in, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we're going to be talking about all throughout the offseason at this point. And the offseason just got, I don't even know if more exciting is the best way to phrase it, because it's less exciting, but it's also it puts us in a position where it's a little bit more nebulous. We don't know exactly what the Giants are going to do if they don't have that first overall pick. Right. The Giants had the first overall pick. They were more than likely going to go with one of those quarterbacks. Now that potentiality of trading up. Are you kidding me? We're going to trade. Our team sucks. We can't trade assets to trade up. Or will we just select a really good cornerback or an offensive line? Like, it just adds another layer of mystery to the offseason, which is intriguing. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a quarterback, who the hell are you? Is this going to lead the Giants to going out and getting a Sam Darnold and giving him the bag? I don't know. Who's going to be the coach? All of these questions are still yet to be answered. And here we are, man. It's just so funny, man. The right after the week, the Giants lock it up. They go out and they play like this. They perform like this. After absolutely
for so long. It goes to show they didn't lock it up. You know, they just got to that point.
But they had it in their grasp.
They had it in their grasp.
They had it in their grasp. It was just you have to hold on to it.
Well, it felt like a lot.
Continue doing what you've been doing. Which is
yeah, exactly. That's why it felt like a lot, because they lost 34-7 to the Falcons, and it was like one of the most hopeless, hapless performances you'll see. It was like wow, we were clearly the worst team in the NFL, but then they just turned it on. It's the NFL. This is the thing. Like, you could have a good week any week. Giants had a great week today, you know, and it's ironic too, because Neighbors doing all that he did today, that that rising up to make that sick catch, the catch by the pylon, just crazy stuff, and then the yak plays. It's ironic because he made those huge plays, but it could cost him a quarterback for next year or his whole career, potentially, if either of those two guys are good, or, if they don't trade up for one of them or something like that, or whatever ends up being. Because if they beat the Eagles, the Giants, they'll probably drop Nick to 7th, maybe 8th.
You think Shador is texting Neighbors right now? Like, yo, bro, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, what are you doing, man? I thought we had a good catch in, Midtown, dude. What's going on with this?
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like Shador definitely wants to go to the Giants, but we'll see what happens with that anyway. And Cam Ward to me looked more exciting anyway, but Cam Ward has no pressure. He just drops back and sits in that pocket. That reminds me of like what happened with Zach Wilson. He's not Zach Wilson. He's a totally different prospect, but it was Zach Wilson at BYU, just never had pressure, which was an issue. But, man, it's just, it's the state of this team, and it's what we're in. And I'm sorry to get worked up, but I
Yeah.
am worked up about the carryover effect because it's non-existent, it's fake, and the reality is what they really lost was thousands of points on the draft trade chart with this loss.
Yeah, that's that's the crux of everything.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Giant fans understand that. And look, it's a spot where a lot of people don't want to root against their team, but we have to look.
Yeah.
And I completely understand that. I'll never
Yep.
tell anybody how to fan, but if we're looking into the future, it's very safe to say that it'd be much better for the Giants if they had that higher pick, especially after this lost season. But I think we beat that dead horse at this point.
Right.
The Giants came out, they played well, man. They played well against a team that
offensively, I thought. I didn't think they played well defensively.
I don't know if they can play well defensively.
Yeah, there's nobody left. There's nobody left on this roster. There's literally not a single starter feels like left.
I know. And there were some clutch plays by some of these second level defenders where they were
Burns and Kayvon played pretty well.
Burns and Kayvon too, absolutely. But those like 3rd and 1 runs by Jonathan Taylor, where Ty Summers looked like Micah McFadden putting himself in position to like make a tackle in a huge situation. So same with Jason Pinnock. And the Giants also had 2 picks in this game. When did the Giants ever intercept anything? Right? They entered this season with 3 interceptions, and they intercepted Flacco twice in this game. With
the Belton one was nice. The second one was just kind of a gift.
Yeah, exactly. But that Belton one was very nice because I saw exactly what Flacco thought he saw. He saw Belton buzz down to the flat, and then Belton just speed turned and just sank right underneath the vertical to come away with that pick. And that's what Dane Belton does sometimes. We just haven't seen enough of that. But again, he's not exactly in a position where the defense is going to be using sub packages all throughout the game, because the Giants offense never puts the defense in a position to actually pin their ears back, as we've talked about for years now. But I don't know if that's going to get fixed this offseason. It's going to be an interesting offseason, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, it adds intrigue at the very least. You're right. Like if we had the number 1 overall pick, it would be worse for us from from an intrigue standpoint, because we know who they were taking probably like 2 weeks before the draft. So then like you don't get anything on draft night. So I guess from that standpoint, it's a good thing. I feel like the Giants are so bad. Just speaking about the game, I feel like the Giants are so freaking bad at the catch point. These DBs, man, like watching Flacco just throw these balls up and just like every time the receiver makes the catch, every time. It's like that gives me not a lot good feeling about the future, especially when Banks plays this bad. That was a 1st round pick again by Shane that he traded up for. Like, and again, like what I turn my head to, Nick, is more so like the concern with like the direction of this franchise. It seems like they've made their mind up, to me at least, that Joe Shane is going to come back as GM. I could be wrong, but again, I don't know why you'd be traveling on private jets to see Ward and see Sanders yesterday if that wasn't the case. And Joe Shane, to me, just hasn't done enough. He came off to me looking terrible on Hard Knocks. He's had a really bad 2023 and 2022 draft classes, despite having unbelievable capital in both, made trade-ups that didn't work in those drafts. And then, he had one good draft class, and he's put them in a decent cap spot. But it seems to me like if you bring him back and fire Dable, first of all, what head coach wants to come to a lame duck GM situation? Let's start with that. Second of all, is he just going to be in a position like Dave Gettleman was in 2019, where it's like, I got to get a quarterback no matter what, so let me fall in love with one of these guys. And then to the point of I'm now so in love with him, I'll trade up for that quarterback. And that just seems like a horrible process, man, because I'll tell you this, Nick, if they decided that they would want to pass on a quarterback at 6 overall last year because of Malik Neighbors, right? And that's a fair thing that me and you both agreed with at that time.
Yep.
That's your process then. And you have to stick to that process. You can't 1 year later change your process up if the prospect is not that great and be like, now we're just desperate. We got to trade up for one. It's too late. We just got to do it. Because I'll be honest with you, from my early valuation of this class, like I don't think either of these guys are that far ahead of what was left on the board after the big 3 last year at quarterback. Like maybe Ward. I see some upside with Ward, maybe Sanders, I guess, but like it's not like these guys are perfect prospects whatsoever. And obviously neither was like Nix, Penix, and McCarthy, but they were obviously have proven at least they can do something, right? Like Nix has made some really good plays in the NFL, and he's proving me like I'm totally stunned by what I'm seeing from Bo Nix. Too early with Penix, and obviously McCarthy we didn't get to see this year. But like, I just think you got to stick to your process. You can't let the panic seep in, because that's when we could really bury ourselves as a franchise.
Absolutely. And I mean, we're putting the cart before the horse. We don't know how the Giants are going to handle this offseason. Logic would suggest that quarterback would be a priority after the absolute dereliction of duty we've witnessed this past season, when the Giants did not go out and add competent backups, unless, of course, that quarterback is playing the Indianapolis Colts in week 17 when you have the number 1 overall pick already in your grasp. Then Drew Lock wants to play up to the expectations of Brian Dable and Joe Shane.
Or better.
Now, but good for Locke, man. Locke's a good guy, but this is
and good for the team. Let's make that clear.
Yeah.
I want to make it clear. The team is not tanking, and my advice is not we should be tanking. I'm
course,
not speaking about anything the
that doesn't
Giants
need
should
to
be doing.
said.
They're playing for their salary. No, but people get that misconstrued all the
You're
time
right, you're right.
with us and with me specifically. Look, they have to play. They're trying to make money for their families. Cable's trying to keep his job, and I want them to play their hardest and try to win the game. All I'm saying is when the final thing is said and done, I don't want them winning these last 2 games. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't want the end result to be a win. I know they should try to win, but sometimes when you try to win, you lose. That's basically been the story of the Giants' life for us for the last 5 years. They've tried to win and they've lost. So I'd rather them try to win their hardest and not win these last 2 meaningless games, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see people in the comments being like, who cares if the draft isn't a sure thing? It's like, you guys understand, though. It's like, this is leverage. This is owning a pick that you can do whatever with, that people are aspiring to get ahead of you based on what they believe your plans are. This is such an edge, and one of the biggest points of changing your team, which is the NFL draft. Having a higher pick is an edge over the 31 other teams. And when you are picking number 1, you have an edge over all 31 of those teams. And you could do whatever you want. It just gives you so much more potential. It's not even about the selection that you make. Right. It's the options that you have at your disposal when you have that first overall pick. Like, I don't think this is like,
it's very important to hammer this home, Nick. No, it is important because everyone's like, whatever, it's a crapshoot. I don't care if they go 1 or 5. No. You have to understand, like, there was a draft where the Bears traded 1 pick from 3 to 2 to get Mitch Trubisky and gave up a ton of capital. That's what you're losing out on. You're losing out on capital. You can trade the pick. It's worth everything. And it's not just the major way to build your roster. It's the only way to build a consistently winning franchise through the draft. The free agency does nothing. It's a supplemental thing that mostly doesn't work out. So basically a draft or nothing. You have to start drafting well. You need all the capital you can get to draft well. So when you have the first pick, that's worth a lot more. And by the way, as I mentioned earlier, in the start of day 2, you now have the most valuable pick on the board by far. People are trying to trade up. Somebody fell that shouldn't have fell in the first round. Now you can trade that back, pick up more assets. So it's worth a ton. It doesn't matter if you think you have a lot. If there's an Arch Manning or not in a draft class. It does not matter. It means more, of course. You don't want to give up a chance at a guy like that, but like, the fact is, it's the capital that you give up, and that's what makes it frustrating, at least for me. Because, and it is what it is. They have to try to play to win, and they won. And it is. And, I mean, that crowd sounded dead to me from the TV version. I'll have to ask people who were at the game, but it looked like there was nobody there in that stadium.
Did you know anybody who was there?
Yeah, Will went to that game. He doesn't.
Will went?
Yeah, Will doesn't miss a game, and Justin went to that game. I think I saw him posting about it.
Okay, cool.
Some people went to that game.
Want to get to some soups, bud?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty, the Dan abides 10. Talk about the worst time for this team to figure out how to play football. I hope Dable doesn't keep his job due to this. I don't think this would be the reason why Dable loses his job, but yeah.
I do want to make it clear, though, to that comment. And we've talked about this, Nick, but I'm now more nervous about the possibility of keeping Shane than Dable. I'll be honest, even though it seems like the Giants are headed in the opposite direction of firing Dable and keeping Shane. I think a coach can do far less damage to a franchise than a GM can do. Yeah. And if Shane is retained and Panic takes a quarterback or Panic trades up for a quarterback, that could really fuck this team. So I don't think he deserves to be back anyway. He's done nothing that I think is that impressive except for the trades.
The Dan Abides also says, what's worse than wasting a first overall pick on a mediocre quarterback? Paying a king's ransom to trade up to waste a first overall pick on a mediocre quarterback. But that just seems to be the Giants' way these days.
Well, they haven't done that yet. We can't call it the Giants' way. They didn't have to trade up for Jones in 2019. They just overdrafted him at 6.
Yeah. Drastically. And he also says, when do Giant fans get their free medium Pepsi this season?
It's over now. The last home game, so I don't think they're going to get the free medium Pepsis. But guess what? The Giants broke the streak. They're not winless at home, 0-9 for the first time ever. Guess what? Teams weren't having 9 home games ever. It's the most meaningless, stupid stat that none of us would have cared about or remembered in 3 years. That's what we don't want to be the only winless team. No. What we want is actual winning team, like seasons. Okay, that's what we need. Like, let's get this thing clear.
Yeah. Jason Benjamin, thank you so much, says, happy holidays, fellas. Happy holidays, Jason. Tell neighbors not to care about winning this game. Still a lot of time to evaluate quarterbacks. I personally like Milroe. Happy New Year.
Yeah, look, again, these players that are going to care about winning, and I'm not telling them not to care about winning. I
Of
want them
course.
to play their hardest. They're going to play their hardest to feed their families and all those things. No one's saying that. Nick and I just were not hoping the result ended in a win. And we've explained that in thorough. And now, as far as what you said, yeah, you may not like the quarterbacks going 1-2, but it doesn't matter. Like, they still want to have the opportunity to choose who they want to choose. That's what's valuable, plus the trading, plus the having it in every round. So there's no way to say that it's better to have the fifth pick than the first pick. It's an illogical argument. It has no logic behind it, and it will not be argued on this show.
Very well put. Isser Gallagly, I don't know if I got that right, but we're going to roll with it. Conspiracy theory. Ooh, love these. Dabes knows he is gone. Decides to screw Shane by coaching well and losing #1 overall pick. Nice to see neighbors really show his potential.
Yeah, I've seen some people float this conspiracy theory. Of course, Isser. I don't know how to pronounce your first name. Maybe Isser or Iser. I'm going to go with Iser, but I have no real idea. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name because I'm not going to get there correctly. But I don't think this is really a possibility, Nick. I think he's just coaching to win every game. They just haven't been playing well, like at all until today, where they just locked in, no pun intended, and just played great ball on offense. I want to say because they weren't good.
Let's intend that pun. Because Drew Lock was locked in, and he wasn't really doing all that much in the very beginning, right? And then it was just well-designed plays that he was executing on. He seemed to be in rhythm, knew where to go with the football, and everything was timed up. And Gus Bradley runs a lot of cover 3. That's like Gus Bradley's thing. He gets made fun of for it like all the time.
True.
This goes back to his time dating back to when he was the defensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks. And when you're running a lot of cover 3, you can throw into the leverage. And that's one of the ways the Giants had so much success was they were throwing into the leverage. Just, you want to align 10, 12 yards off us? Cool. We're going to throw a 3-yard hitch, and then Neighbors is going to make a bunch of people miss and take a 59 yards for a touchdown. It's just, everything was clicking for the Giants. I don't buy that conspiracy theory, but yeah, it's always fun to hear them. Your average fan, thank you so much, buddy, says Giants are going to pick 4th and get a better player, Travis Hunter, Will Johnson, etc. Then they would have gotten at 1. Sorry, I'm not upset about it.
Yeah, there's no guarantee of that. First of all, they could have taken any of those players at 1. They could have traded back to 4 and taken those players and picked up extra picks. So that would have been better than just sitting at 4, taking those. Also, there's still a chance that they don't look at it the way you do. And they're like, we need to take a quarterback. I'm Joe Shane. My job is on the line. So I'm trading up for a quarterback. So no, I don't accept that at all, personally.
Gavin Casey. Thank you, Gavin. Hey, guys. Thanks for everything this season. Just curious as to your thoughts on this. Is there any point of literally anything anymore? I
feel this way, Gavin. I feel this hard.
Yes, I don't know. I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Is there a point just about anything anymore at all? Is there ever a point? I don't know.
For the sake of this show, I'm going to say yes.
For the sake
you can't tell listeners there's no point to anything. And then
whether it's the 5th pick or the 1st pick, the Giants are going to select somebody, and Big Blue Banter will be here to tell you who that guy is and how he looks on film.
And hopefully we can just luck into changing this freaking franchise, man.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Lovely. Jason Benjamin, thank you so much. Again, Shane and Dave's aren't going anywhere. Mara said it. So
Jason, that's happened before. Yeah, no, Jason, that's happened before where Mara has midseason said a coach is not going anywhere. I think the last one was Shermer or Judge or one of those.
He didn't want to fire Judge.
Maybe it was Judge. He had a good comment at one of these midseasons, like, nope.
He begrudgingly fired Judge.
Yeah.
Yeah, he begrudgingly did it because of, I think, the Chicago press con, just how bad it toiled away. And he lost the locker room with that Jake Fromm shit, too. Yeah. With the quarterback sneak on 3rd down.
And I think it goes deeper than that. He had like a feeling of everyone walking on eggshells. He was a terrible head coach.
Can't walk on eggshells around my team. All right. Iser again, or Isser. New York Post article about keep GM cut coach historically not work. Don't think Shane has a vision for what type of team he wants compared to Lions.
I think you're spot on here, and I think it's a big reason why I want Shane gone. You nailed the 2 key things. One is the risk of keeping a GM and cutting a coach. It's never, it has, but it rarely works. 2, it's the pressure of him trying to get a quarterback. And then 3, I agree with you, dude. Like, after I saw Hard Knocks, it kind of confirmed to me. I don't think he has a good vision. I kind of feel like he just drafts need stuff, just tries to fit need with talent at all times. Has his own, like, part of his vision is let's not pay for non-premium positions like safety and running back, which is fine if you view it in not in a but like if you don't put it into a bucket. But you're like, there's sometimes where Xavier McKinney's 24 years old and looks awesome. Like you have to go against your grain. Like you can't just you're not going to have a lot of talent. You're not going to have another chance at this kind of guy. So it's like not always right to just jam these certain strategies. You have to kind of adjust, in my opinion, on the fly. And I don't agree. I don't love his vision at all, what he's done so far with this roster building. I think it's been pretty terrible through 3 years, honestly, overall. So, like, yeah, I mean, it's bad across the board, I think, for Shane. Hopefully he can turn it around because they're going to keep him.
Cruise 80. Thank you. Here for the cheap group therapy. I hate this team. Yeah, well,
we all do. I mean, Nick and I both hate this team. We
Yeah.
hate this team right now. We love this team, but we hate this team right now with a passion. I hate this team with a passion right now. As much as I've ever hated the Giants, I hate them right now. And I still love them, but I hate them.
Yeah, I just want them to provide the product that I feel like the fans deserve. Like that's
Right.
what I think a lot of the people who are labeled Giants hate. They just want to see the product on the field that they believe they deserve. Which
Right.
every fan should want that from their franchise, should demand that from their franchise. But a franchise that's renowned as the New York Giants, it's historically great as the New York Giants, you expect that. And now it's been basically like 15 years of just shit. You had like 2 seasons in 2016 and 2022, which kind of both of them were a little fugazi. And now we're picking first overall and we blow it away on this Indianapolis Colts win. And it's just like, oh my God, like when is the mediocrity, beyond mediocrity, going to end?
Exactly. Well said.
Twist. Thank you so much. Says Neighbors is the only player with all pro potential that Joe put on the roster. He needs to go immediately. I don't even see a Pro Bowler other than Leak. That could be a good conversation. Is Malik Neighbors the only all pro potential? I think probably so, right? All pro is high praise. And now some of the other guys in the 2024 draft class have shown a lot. I can't sit here and say they're all pro, but if they developed, could they eventually become that? I wouldn't be necessarily shocked. But I think Twist has a really good point here.
I think it's an excellent point by Twist. And I think it's not like the same. You can't compare apples to oranges. Like the Chiefs, that GM has had like the 28th pick or the 30th or 31st pick in every draft. Shane has not had that. He actually had 2 top 7 picks, and neither of them look like they have any chance of being an all pro, right? Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal. Maybe Thibodeau, but doesn't really feel like it. Then he had another pick in the first round, one he traded up for Deontay Banks, who looks nowhere near being an all-pro Deontay Banks, right? So there's another one. So Wan'Dale Robinson, a second-round pick. We see second-round receivers turn into all-pros all the time in the NFL. It's not a random occurrence. He doesn't look like he's anywhere close to being an all-pro player. John Michael Schmitz, the second center taken off the board. When you are the second center taken off the board, you better have all-pro potential. It's a onesie position. And it's not, and you're taking a guy at 55 overall. He looks like he has no chance of being an all-pro center. So when you start to pile these up, Twist, thank you for the comment, it looks really bad for Joe Shane. Like, yeah, he nailed Malik Neighbors. Great job. The easiest fucking evaluation in the history of the world. Only a fucking blind chimp could have evaluated Malik Neighbors' tape at LSU, honestly. A blind chimp could have evaluated. If you just saw the dots, if you didn't even see the tape, you just had dots on a screen. Like, you know, Doug Analytics runs the dots for the touchdown plays, Nick. Just run dots of Malik Neighbors at LSU, and you're like, oh, draft this guy. Nobody can tackle him. He's great after the catch. He's explosive, and he does everything well. So that I don't give him credit for that personally.
Yeah, nobody should. No, I 100% understand what you're saying there, Twist. I think it's a
Tracy, though, that's a good eval, but he's not an all-pro.
Tracy and Drew Phillips are both good evals. I think Nubin is going to be a good player, all-pro. I mean, that's way too soon to say that, you know? I mean,
sure.
I think 2024 was a draft hit, but 2022 was drastically underperformed our expectations, considering the Giants had 2 top 10 picks. You can argue, and it's accurate, that both of them have not even come close to living up to their potential. And then the 2023 draft, you just went through it. Banks seems like it could be a bust. I think John Michael Schmitz is a average center, which is not good for the 52nd overall pick or 56 overall, whatever he was. And then Jalen Hyatt hardly sees a football field. And you traded up for Jalen Hyatt, and he hardly sees a football field. That's a problem.
2 trade ups in that draft. Those are remember we used to say, Nick, this is the one thing we have to play it fair, right? Because we used to talk all the time about the hubris of Dave Gettleman, how he always wanted to trade up because he's like, that's me. I can out scout these guys. I can out scout the class. This is the best value. He shouldn't be on the board. I got to trade up for him. I can out scout the class. He talked about it with Will Hernandez, wasn't able to do it with Lorenzo Carter. Well, Joe Shane is doing the same shit, so we have to keep him accountable for it. He's out scouting the class on Jalen Hyatt by trading up for him. He's out scouting the class on Deontay Banks. I can't risk not getting him and somebody trading above me. I got to get Deontay Banks, and I'm going to trade these extra picks. Well, so far, his out scouting has not worked. And same thing with Wan'Dale Robinson. It's another out-scout the class. Same thing with Josh Azudu. It's another out-scout the class, out-scout the, projections, what people think these guys would go. All four, he hasn't worked on. I like Wan'Dale Robinson, by the way, but he's not really like a difference-making player at 44 overall or whatever he's taken.
Yeah, it's I think he was the pick for that for the offense. That's who they wanted the Cole Beasley to be for these little layup routes, and maybe
get a Cole Beasley in round 5 or the free agent market.
That's the thing, right? Like it's how you allocate your resources. Yes, he's a valuable player. Yes, he's a good football player, but is that the best way to spend that second round pick when your roster is devoid of talent? That's the argument.
You know what's the effed up thing, Nick? I think he's so bad at his job, honestly, quite frankly, so far at least has been so bad at his job that, like, if he had just not taken Wan'Dale and been like, I'll get that type of player for my offense in round 5 or free agency and let me take an offensive lineman, he would have screwed up that offensive line pick, dude, because he did with Azudo. So, like, I don't even think it's a good thing. Like, the only thing I think he could have done is take an interior defensive lineman. That's the only way he could have been safe with that pick.
Dude, let's talk about, and this is something we talked about a lot in the offseason. The Giants' second best defensive lineman this year, it's probably Raheem Nunez-Roches, but it's not crazy to at least posit the idea that it's Armand Watts, who looks like he tore his ACL in this game, which is terrible. I'm speculating a little bit.
Hard and well.
Yeah. And he's actually he's solid on film, all things considered. This is somebody I think the Giants plucked off a practice squad not long ago. And he's your second best defensive lineman behind Dexter Lawrence when everyone's healthy. I mean, that's bad. That's rough, especially when your defense is going to run as much too high as Shane Bowen was planning to do.
It doesn't make sense. You're right. That's the best point there, because if you have that coordinator in place and you're bringing that scheme, you need defensive line to make that scheme work and trench depth, which is something that's fallen apart under Shane. And I'll give Gettleman credit for. I mean, he screwed up at the end when he panic traded BJ Hill for Billy Price, but before that, he did a good job of actually improving the interior defensive line.
That panic trade. I remember that. We were like, we like BJ Hill, but we were like so desperate too. Like, dude, we don't have anybody to play offensive line right now. That was the year when the Giants went in the training camp with Joe Looney and another offensive lineman, and they both quit like a week.
Yeah, I'm not gonna play for Joe Judge. This guy sucks.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy.
I literally quit on Judge. He was so
Barry Gooster, thank you so much. Bud says, my emotions have kind of imploded, and I think I'm now just mentally preparing for the Giants to make all bad decisions. Anyway. Yeah. Happy holidays, gents.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way, Gooser. It's like we're at a bad point of this fanhood where we're just expecting the worst.
Yeah, I don't like being at that point, but it's tough not to be at that point when things have been so bad for so long with the Giants.
My brother is so despondent. We may have to get him on the pod. He was so fucking mad today. He was like the one thing he threatened to give up the family season tickets. They've been in our family for generations now. For my dad, his dad, like just generations. And but now my brother pays for them because I can't go to games because of work, and my dad, just not interested as much going to games. So it's basically been falling on my brother, and he's like threatening to get rid of them. He's like, I'll just buy him single game tickets when I want to go. Like, if this team blows this first overall pick, I may sell these tickets. That was his threat. And he was so angry today when they won this game. And I don't blame him. I really don't. Like, he wanted the first pick so he can have the choice of quarterback, right? So he could have the valuable asset that is the first overall pick. So I don't blame him at all. I think he's logically right.
Yeah. It's also like what's going to give you the best potential to turn this shit around?
Right.
Having the number 1 overall pick gives you a better potential than the number 5 overall.
Or beating the Colts in week 17 of the 2024 season.
Yeah.
Pretty obvious.
Wait, PJ, thank you, PJ. Not that it matters much, but I think you may be mistaken about round 2 and 3, etc. I believe teams with same records rotate picks in the later round.
No, PJ, you're correct. But the Giants, if they had lost this week and next week, would have been the only 2-loss team. That's the point, PJ. So there would be no rotation. You are correct that if they're tied, they rotate. There would be no rotation. The Giants would be the only 2-win team. Everyone else would have 3 or more, and the Giants would have the first pick in every single round.
Well said, buddy. Double 0031. Ooh, I love that. So that's a double 00. Okay. Drew Lock decides today, of all games, to channel his inner Al Bundy playing for Polk High. They better split the game next week with DeVito and Lock. What about Timmy Boyle? Yeah, no.
No. They're going to play Lock, obviously, after this week. And Lock, if Lock plays like he plays today, the Giants are going to win next week against the Eagles for sure. So they'll go to 4 wins, probably the 7th or 8th overall pick in the draft.
Alrighty. What is that?
Maybe worse.
Married with Children reference?
Yeah, Married with Children. Have you seen that show?
A little. I think my parents had it on when I was a kid, but I never sat down. I was like, "Oh, Married with Children are on." Let me
it is. I never watched it, just like you said, but then I like the actor. I'm forgetting his name who plays Al Bundy because he's also Ed Helms, I think is his name, but that could be way off.
No, Ed Helms is the guy from the
Office. No, he's the Office guy. I don't know this actor's name. He's a great actor, but anyway, he then was in he was in Modern Family, where I love him in that show. So then I started following an Instagram account, which is like the best of Al Bundy. And like the humor was so non-PC back in when that show was on Married with Children. The things he says are so non-PC, and I love him. I think the humor is funny. Apologize if anyone's offended by Al Bundy. I don't really care. I'm just not a big fan of being offended by comedy. And so like I just like watching these clips of him just like I don't even want to say it because I may offend people by saying these jokes. They were so raw. They were so like borderline.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's Ed O'Neill is the actor.
Ed O'Neill, yes, Ed O'Neill, not Ed Helms.
SPP Williams, thank you. Just shows what a team can do if the quarterback doesn't screw up. And
yeah, good points. Thank you, SPP Williams. You're right. If the quarterback plays competent football and throws for 3+ touchdowns for the first time, it would have been 60 games for Daniel Jones and 3 for whatever Tommy DeVito. Then yeah, you can maybe win a game. That's the deal. Get your quarterback to play good football and you win.
It's the consistency, right?
Consistently, yeah. Do it week after week. Do it like Burrow. Do it like Herbert. Do it like all these guys who are winning freaking games in the NFL. Lamar, Allen. They all win games over and over again.
Over and over, baby. Jake Andrews, thank you. Here, I thought the Giants couldn't get me angry again this season. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. The cherry on top of this SHIT Sunday. Keep up the work, guys. Thank you so much, Jake. We always appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, appreciate you, Jake. Thank you so much. And you could have cursed there, Nick. I've already ruined this show from a this episode from a cursing episode standpoint.
John Kirk, thank you, John. If the Lions or Vikings lose today, can Philly still be in contention for the next seed next week?
For the first seed, he's saying, and I think the answer is no. I think they've already lost the first seed.
I'm pretty sure they lost the first seed as well. Yes. AFC 5253, thank you, buddy. I need to have a proper conversation with you guys. Lunch, dinner in the city.
Wow, nice.
You name the place, my treat. It's something we'll have to organize on the Twitter sphere. AFC 5253.
Nice, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
SPP Williams, thank you so much. Tough, smart, dependable. Sounds a bit full, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, these monikers, they always sound good when you're winning. And then when you're losing, or like a team like the Giants 2-14, what are they now? 3-13. Yeah, they seem to fall the wayside.
Chris Perry, thank you, Chris. This also hurts because all the positions we need rarely become available in free agency. And if they do, they are going to be overpriced. Happy New Year.
No, you're right, Chris. You have to win through the draft in the NFL. There's no real option. The free agency can be a supplement. It can help at times. It can hurt at times. The contracts never tend to work out toward the latter years, but you hope by that point it doesn't matter. But you got to draft. You got to draft well. And that's why every single pick matters. That's why every position matters. Having the first, the fourth in every round matters a lot.
Yep. Easer comes back and says, Easer is pronounced Easer. Any chance we could get Vrabel if we keep Shane? Dave's a good offensive coordinator, but need a disciplined head coach. No drop, fumbles, motion, etc.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, by the way, Easer, because there was a time in this game where I was thinking like, oh, everything's going right for the Giants today, Nick. But then it's like, that was kind of a bad Dable moment when they had 10 men on the field for the 2-point conversion. And I was like, just kind of another Dable moment where he's just not, these guys are not that prepared. And you said it best, Easer. There's been a ton of drops, fumbles, motion penalties, a lot of pre-snap penalties, stupid, things that the coach doesn't really, that unprepared, lack of preparedness. Issues from the team, which stem back from the coach always. So I would have to agree with you on that. As far as any chance they can get Vrabel, I would think no, Nick and Easer, because if you're Mike Vrabel, why would you come to the Giants? You have a lame duck GM if Joe Shane is kept, first of all. Second of all, you have a shit roster that you're inheriting. And third of all, you may not even have the first pick anymore. You're probably almost definitely not going to have the first pick. You may not have the second or third pick. You may end up at 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's really a horrific selling point for any coach. Yeah. And just remember, by the way, last year, we have some evidence of this, Easer and Nick. Last year, the Giants got like their third or fourth choice at defensive coordinator. No one wanted to come coordinate this defense, despite having Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns.
We went through it too. Right. Now, they interviewed Bowen early, but they didn't hire him like 2 weeks after. I think they interviewed him. They wanted the Baltimore Ravens defensive back coach who ended up going to Tennessee.
Right.
He ended up taking that job. And then it was like, oh, they're going to promote Jerome Henry. It got awkward. It was weird. And then they just went with Bowen.
Correct.
Because he had good stats, according to Hard Knocks.
So I don't know if they're going to have, according to the Hard Knocks dialogue. God, that was painful. I don't know if they're going to have good options for head coach. That's why I'm like, if they keep Shane, I'm almost just like at this point, Nick, just keep them both. F it. Like keep them together. No, because like
no,
just
no, no, no. I'm not disagreeing
yeah.
with you. I get it, but I'm saying that I don't think this is that's a good situation, right?
No, and
Now,
I don't think keeping Shane and firing Dable is a good situation either, though.
no, that's my yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where like Mara might be patient, and the Giants could sit here and bring them both back, and it's going to draw
Well,
ire.
if they win the last 2 games, Mara can feel like we're headed in the right direction. We won the last 2 games. We got to bring back them both. Like it's a good excuse for him to bring back both if they win these last 2 games for
And the
him.
Giants pick 9th or something.
Now, I think that at this point, fans are getting so much more aware of this
Yeah.
type of stuff, Nick. Like 4 or 5 years ago, when the Giants were more of a winning team consistently and didn't have a lot of seasons like this, the fans would buy into the Mara talk. And they, you know what, you're right. They played hard down the stretch. They're showing signs. They can carry it over to next year. They're good. You know, they're fighting for this coach. But nowadays, fans have been through this so much that I just don't think it's. I think Mara's. You know, it's not as much of a selling point for Mara as it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. I think it's just also it's compounded, right? Because the Giants were never like this embarrassing, only really in the 70s. It will be like a couple years where they struggled and then they try to figure it out. But now it's been struggle since and this is kind of on merit too, and because people don't really agree with how it was handled, even though it's still a little bit conjecture because we're not sure. But there was a 2-time winning coach, Super Bowl head coach, who the Giants basically forced into retirement with Tom Coughlin. And that's kind of started this tenure of just gross football that went from McAdoo to Shermer to Judge and now to Dable. So like I can understand why the fan base is so frustrated and they might have a shorter fuse than usual. All right. Jake, thank you so much, Jake Andrews. Again, I get your point about Shane versus Dable, but I ask, who has improved under Dable? Even Locke looked better. We have so much evidence of guys playing better before, after Dable. Fire them both.
Yeah, no, Jake, I'm with you. I want to make it clear. My ideal scenario is they move on from both Shane and Dable. My questionable, where I question it, Jake, is if they're gonna just move on from Dable, I wonder if that's better than moving on or than them keeping Dable and keeping Shane, because I would rather them just be a piece together. Like I just don't love the idea of Shane staying and then trying to hire a head coach when a head coach is like, why am I going to come here when the GM is like on a lame duck season where he's like in prove it mode?
Yeah, no, I feel you, man. We get you. Man Ray, thank you. I can't say I've been this upset as a fan in my lifetime. Year after year, we seem to fail to succeed and also fail to fail. Now Ward is a Titan, man.
Well, yeah, that's the thing with the Titans losing to the Jaguars. They jumped the Giants, I'm pretty sure, with the Giants winning. And so the Titans we actually were rooting, Nick, for the Jaguars to win because the Jaguars are unlikely to take a quarterback if you wanted a quarterback for the Giants. So
according to Tankathon, I'm sorry to cut you off. According to Tankathon, the Giants pick 3rd right now. The Patriots and the Titans pick 1st and 2nd. And then the Giants.
But a Browns win would move the Browns to 3rd and the Giants to 4th. So we are rooting heavy. Or a Browns loss, I should say. A Browns loss. We are rooting heavy for the Browns to win this game. Heavy for the Browns to win this game.
And I shouldn't say they should.
They should against this backup Dolphins quarterback, but they suck too. And they have Dorian Thompson-Robinson. It's Tyler Huntley for Dorian Thompson-Robinson in this game.
It's a barn burner.
Dorian Thompson-Robinson right now is 4 of 10, Nick, for 32 yards passing, 3.2 yards per.
It's only like a quarter into the game, though. But no, I got you.
Yeah.
Johnny Morawowski. I don't know if I hit that, but thank you, Johnny. These 2 quarterbacks, Ward and Shedeur Sanders, aren't good. Massive issues with both. I'm happy we won.
Again, Johnny, I think what you're mistaken on is that if you have the first pick, you don't have to take the quarterback. You could trade it and pick up the assets. You also then have it for each round. We don't need to go back through this, Johnny. We went over this already on the pod. I just completely disagree with this take. I've explained why.
Twist, thank you so much again. We need Mara to give us a valid reason if he retains Shane, not because he doesn't want to keep turning into GM head coach. Yes. What football reasons does he have?
Good point, Twist.
Excellent point by Twist.
Spot on, Twist. Twist is you're having a great episode.
Twist is batting 1,000 right now. Twist batting 1,000. No, but I'll say this too, man. I don't think Mara owes. Well, I think Mara owes that to the fan base, but I don't think he is
going to give it
to provide it. Like he doesn't. He could just go out there and say, "I trust the plan," and it'll be like, "Well, what the fuck's the plan?" I'll be like, "Well, I'm not going to tell you that, motherfucker." That's probably what we're going to receive as a fan base. So, if they're retained, or if Shane is retained, I'm imagining that's probably what we'll hear.
I think you're right.
Jay Ferris, thank you, Jay. We haven't had good quarterback play in 15 years. And Twitter people talk about drafting defensive tackles, Travis Hunter, or trading down. Brain dead takes. Toughest position to fill in sports.
Yeah, you can't just punt QB. We saw this year what punting QB actually leads to, and it leads to the most inept football in the history of the Giants franchise, which is what it was until today's game. So you can't punt the position. So I agree with you, Jay Ferries, and hopefully they have their eye on somebody they like, and hopefully they can get that quarterback, and he's what they think they can be.
Jason, thank you so much again. I never thought I would hear fans mad over a win. The draft is a crapshoot. Mahomes and Lamar were pick post top 10. Some fans aren't expecting the worst.
Yeah, I guess, but like Mahomes and Lamar were electric college players with electric arm talent. Nobody's randomly sitting there in this draft class that could be drafted outside.
And I'll say this too. The 2017 and 2018 NFL draft was a very long time ago.
Yeah. Teams are not going to let those types of prospects slide again. But again, no one, and I want to make it clear, no one in this draft class had the arm talent of a Mahomes or Lamar. No one had even close to the arm talent. No one had the explosive plays that those guys put on tape. Okay, so let's make that very clear, Jason. This is not, you're not going to find a Lamar or Mahomes at 10 in this draft class.
Drafting quarterback is a lot different right now than it was.
It's harder. I feel like it's even harder.
Well, it's that, and it's also you see teams rolling the dice on traits much more.
Right.
Like someone like I remember when Anthony Richardson came out of Florida, and I was listening to like a draft podcast, and it was like December, and they were like, yeah, he'll probably get in the first round. I'm like, you guys are ridiculous. He's going to be a top 5 pick. There's no like I don't care that he only has like 5 passing attempts in college. This guy's a 6 foot. He has all these like traits. He's going to be a top 5 pick, and then he ended up going like 4th or 3rd to the Indianapolis Colts. So I just think it's a different world than it was back when those like star quarterbacks that you're referencing were drafted.
Agreed.
Chris Perry, thank you, Chris. In regards to Dable as a manager, if something isn't working, try something new. Give it back to the OC. Move linemen around. Something.
Yeah, no, and we hear you, Chris. We're definitely not. We've made it clear. I don't think we think that Dable's done a good job this year.
Larry Edelstein, thank you. Maybe I'm just a guy who can't delay gratification. I enjoyed this win greatly. Watched it with my dad at my parents' house, home for the holidays. Future performance is a crapshoot. Pleasure today. I get why someone would feel that way as well, dude. Like, I'm not saying that they're wrong to feel that way, but I think deep down, a lot of these people who do feel this way also understand that this, has a deleterious effect on the Giants through the draft process. It's not beneficial for them long term. You might want them to win now, and you want that gratification, as you say, Larry. But when the draft rolls around, if the Giants do opt to pay up to get one of those quarterbacks, that's just a terrible situation. And this is a nightmare.
Right.
That's putting the cart before the horse because that has not happened yet.
But I'll also say this, like for me, Larry, I totally understand your point of view. And I know a lot of fans feel this way. I think for me, when it comes down to it, in these totally lost seasons like this simply is, where you have no chance at the playoffs, you're playing for nothing other than being a spoiler. I will be happy with the wins when they come against the Eagles and the Washington and the Cowboys and teams that I care about spoiling their playoff. The 7-8 Colts from the AFC, I don't really give a crap about winning that. I'm sorry. I just don't. So it's not pleasurable for me specifically. Again, I'm not saying I want them to lose, and I'm not saying they should try to lose. I'm just saying if you're asking me what I like to see as a fan, I don't like if we're playing spoiler to a division team, that's fun. I get enjoyment. I think you do too, Nick. But do I get enjoyment out of beating the Colts? I don't specifically. I don't know if you do. It's fine if you do. I don't. It's hard to
Timothy. Do. Yeah, no, I love when the Giants, it's not like this ever happens because the Giants don't play spoiler to the
division rivals. Yeah, exactly.
If it were that, it would be a completely different thing.
That's awesome. And I'm in for that. And I get that. But this is the Colts.
At the end of the day, even that, though, it's like you don't want to lose the first overall pick.
Even that I'm not going to be totally thrilled with.
But it's you can rationalize it much better because it adds to the allure of the rivalry, right? You can be, hey, remember when you guys
and to speak to what Larry said, it's the instantaneous. Even if it's not good long term, in the moment, it feels good because you beat a division rival. In the moment, it didn't feel good to me to beat the Colts. It just didn't. I'm just being honest.
Timothy, thank you. Assuming Shane is retained, how do you think he felt about the win? I thought this too when I was watching him.
Yeah, I did too.
On one hand, he lost the top pick. On the other, his draft picks had a day. Cup runneth over for Joe when Tibbs got that strip sack.
No, I don't think he felt good about this. In my personal opinion, I don't think he's happy they won today. I don't think he'll say that, but I don't think he's happy that they won today.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't know how, I think these football guys will be like, well, it's football, you play to win the game and every win. And I think they have that, but he also has that thing in the back of his mind where it's like, damn it, dude, I had so many opportunities.
I just spent my whole day scouting Shador and Cam yesterday.
Yeah,
For what?
exactly. SPP, thank you. SPP has two things. He says, for our mental health, I think we need to prepare for Shane and Dable next year. And then he says, we need to draft quarterback every season now. Take a punt. So
Yeah,
just
I mean,
go out and get quarterbacks, man, and replenish that room. Look, the Giants didn't do it this year, and we saw the byproduct as we said a little
it's
bit
such a
earlier.
tough spot too, Nick. 'Cause it's like this strategy. People have posed this a lot through our years, but it's like there's so few actual human beings who can play the position consistently and competently. It's like that strategy may not even work because it's just there's not a lot of humans who can do this thing.
It's
Sadly.
tough. It's a very
Yeah.
tough position to play for sure. 0031 again. Thank you. Mara is coming off like James Dolan, 2005, 2018.
Wow.
Churning through general managers and coaches. We're going to call out Larry Wilkins and all of them, bro. Shane and Dable should be fired, but we might be in purgatory.
It is crazy that this era could come close to comparing to that Dolan Knicks era. That's like as bad as it gets.
That was an
But
epic era.
I don't think it's gonna get there though. That involved like a lot of bad trades by the Knicks. Like the Giants, they were one like
Basketball is also a lot different than
it is,
football.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, he is churning through GMs and coaches.
Yeah, that's true. Jake Andrews, thank you. Ending on a happy note, my wife is a Bengals fan, so this
Nice.
helps her. One of the lowest moments in my 35 years watching this franchise. Great work, guys. Thank you so much, Jake. That means a lot, dude.
Yeah, I'll say this about that. Somebody posted this to me. I want to see Joe Burrow in the playoffs too. So just from a side note, if this does help them, I guess I'm happy with that as well to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there's another team they need to lose, but I don't know. I'll figure that out later. And then we have one more super from AFC 5253. Thank you, AFC. The only joy I was going to have was evaluating the quarterbacks in this draft. Oh well, press like indeed. Thank you so much, AFC 5253.
We're still going to evaluate the quarterbacks in this class.
Yeah.
And to the point where what we mentioned earlier, the Giants may trade up for one of these quarterbacks now after blowing the first pick. They may give up their 2026 first round pick, a second round pick, among other assets.
That's devastating.
Yeah, it's really bad. So we're still going to evaluate these quarterbacks for that reason. I think Joe Shane's in I got to draft a quarterback mode, unfortunately, which is never a mode you want your GM in. It's what Dave.
Nothing is worse than being on a shitty team that's forced to trade up to get a quarterback and give up all the assets that was going to reinforce the probability of that quarterback actually being
good. Right.
You know? That's a terrible situation.
And it's why this is a bad win. Let's be honest. It's the exact reason, logically speaking, why this win is not good for them.
It's crazy, bro.
And kind of ended the argument.
Robert Cruz came in. Robert, thank you. I feel like their tank moves and the Colts couldn't capitalize. Tall sweep at midfield on fourth down.
I don't think it was a tank move. I think Dable was just like, I can get there with a run play here. Because he also ran on third and short earlier that got stopped.
Yeah, it was a crack toss. And I think I think it was man coverage. Everything was tight and condensed, trying to get the tackle out. I think it was a Luminor on these little dudes. And it just the linebackers and that safety played it really well. But yeah, those are all our supers.
Okay. Well, this went longer than we expected for a game like this, but it's also like not like a typical loss like the Falcons lost, Nick. It's a big one because win, I should say.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It feels like a loss to me because a big major thing happened for the Giants today. They lost the first overall pick and they dropped at least 2 spots, possibly more in the draft. We'll see where it ends up being. Also depends on what happens next week. Again, if Locke plays like this, Nick, they're beating the Eagles. I'm sure of it because again, the Eagles are benching everyone. Now I do have some hope that they're going to play Barkley to try to get him that Dickerson record. That actually gives me some hope.
It would mean a lot too to Barkley, I imagine. Well, I don't know if Barkley cares about.
I don't know if he cares about that at all.
But it is like poetic because the Giants and all that shit. Yeah,
it should be, and I'm hoping that comes through, Nick. As weird as this is to say, as a Giants podcast, it feels weird. It is weird. It's been this way, man. This is our lives. Like you have to just adjust and adapt to what goes on with this franchise. And at this stage in time, this franchise is better off not winning this last game, as effed up as it sounds. And I understand it's weird, but
I mean, hey, man, it is what it is, dude. I mean, this is the reality of the situation. We know years bleed into the next season when it comes to draft order, and when you're trying to locate a quarterback, it's better to have a higher draft pick. I mean, it's that simple, dude.
Or locate any position, right, for those second, third, and fourth round picks. Yep. So it is what it is at this point, but we'll see. We'll see what happens next week. We got one more to go, Nick, in this wacky, horrific nightmare of a season. And then hopefully we can have a good offseason because a great offseason, we can be a decent team again soon if it's a great offseason.
And again, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this. Dan and I will not be here for the All 22. Okay. So we're just going to probably going to do a podcast midweek or
Yeah.
towards the end of next week before this next game. And then we're going to roll right into the off season, and we'll see what the off season
Right.
unfolds and what exactly we have
And
to
there'll be
do.
a lot to discuss
Oh,
once that
dude,
happens with the
ton of
coaching, the
discuss.
GM, and the draft pick and free agency. So we're excited about all that. But yes, this week, enjoy your New Year's. Happy New Year. Hopefully, you
Yes.
have a great night. Not to be the curmudgeon of the show, Nick, but I always find New Year's to be the worst of the holidays. I hate trying to find plans. A few times I've done like crowded bars for New Year's. I found those to be even worse. So just one thing I've always wanted to do is go to a concert on New Year's. I feel like that's the best possible way to spend New Year's, but I've never actually found a
How many
great show in
concerts
the
have you
area.
been to in your life? You're a concert.
A lot.
I've
Yeah.
been to like one. Well, I don't know, because I've been to like shows before at like
Well,
clubs that like have
oh,
maybe like 60 people. That's not like a
interesting.
concert though.
No, I would consider that a concert too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If I go to like a band I really like and they're playing a 60-person show, honestly, it's like better. Like then
I
you're like,
agree with that.
it's
Oh,
like a legitimately better.
I
Like the
100%.
band I like, I think I've showed you them before, Krungbin. They're pretty big
You
now.
like some bands that like I think you make them up. I don't think I've never heard of them before. They got like these generic weird names, or not generic at all, actually. Very unique.
Odd names, Krungbin, but
Like, it's like a color and then like a noun or something. You know what
that
I
it
mean?
actually means like airplane in Thai, in that language. But they played a show at Stubbs Barbecue in Austin before they blew up, and me and my brother went. It was like only 100 people, maybe. That was we've gone to shows from them since, and we're like nothing. It's like that was a pretty good show. We're like it's just never going to be what it was, like
Yeah.
you can never replicate that small venue. Intimate kind of, concert venue. So I agree with you that I consider that a concert. But anyway, for the rest of you guys, enjoy your New Year's. Hopefully things get better for the Giants, for our sake, for your sake, for your family's sake, for everyone's sake that listens to this. And we'll be here. We'll be here through it all. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.